Okay, thanks. So Brad, how did you get your start? How long you been in the industry? What did you do at the beginning?
Well, it all started, originally I wanted to go into policing. I started back I enrolled in the criminal justice program in Lethbridge College, and it's a college in Southern Alberta. They have a pretty well-known criminal justice program down there. So I ended up attending the college for 4 years, and I obtained 2 diplomas, one in policing, and then I also took another one involving corrections, just to broaden my horizons. And then after that, I was given the opportunity to work at West Edmonton Mall in the security department there. Now, for those that don't know, West Edmonton Mall is a large, well, at the time it was the largest shopping center in the world. Now I think it's like number 20 or something, but it is still the largest shopping center in North America. And I spent about approximately just shy of 15 years there. I started off as a summer student, and then I rose through the ranks as, being a full-time security officer, moved to the rank of sergeant, staff sergeant. And then the last 8 years of my career there, I was their operations manager. And just to give you an in-depth of how big our operation was, we were a 24/7 operation that I oversaw 70 employees that included 700 cameras. And then we looked after a facility that had 30,000 stalls and had an average attendance on a daily basis of 60,000 customers. And then my favorite stat of it all is that on Boxing Day, and for those that don't know what Boxing Day is, it's the busiest shopping day of the year here in Canada, but we would attract about almost 250,000 people to the shopping center. So we were all a city within a city, basically. So then after West Edmonton Mall, I decided to broaden my horizons, and I was approached by Garda World because they were looking for an account manager that had a shopping center background. So I came on with Garda, and that's when I began to realize that, West Edmonton Mall was a small entity. With Garda World, it's an international brand. So there was a lot of movement. There's a lot of room to grow within Garda World, not just within the Edmonton region, but with, either on a national level or international level. And when I say international level, like on an annual basis, we have these conferences that they invite account managers and other managers within Garda World well, we always go to Vegas, perks of the job. And we share best practices with our colleagues. And I've talked to people from the United Kingdom. I've talked to people from Kenya. It's a very worthwhile experience.
So can I just jump in for a second, Brad? Just
sure.
Nephrit's joined us.
Oh, okay.
And I just want to give her the opportunity to introduce herself.
Sure.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nephrit Sidhu. I work as a security manager in life safety for Bentel Greenock from last couple of years. And here I give you a little bit of summary what I exactly do. My role includes guard force management, security audits, hazard risk analysis, key control, emergency management and planning, life safety of the tenants by giving them proper training and giving them training on the evacuation procedures for the high-rise commercial buildings in downtown Calgary. So altogether, I manage 7 buildings in downtown and northeast side of the city. And yeah, that's what I exactly do.
Thanks, Nephrit. And you started as a frontline security officer as well?
Yeah, I actually started in 2014 as a security officer, and then I got promoted to team lead, shift supervisor, site supervisor, and then assistant manager with GuardTech Security, and then finally security manager life safety for Bentel Greenock at present.
Right, and so you made that transition from contract to in-house.
Yeah.
Right. So, Brad, were you in-house at West Edmonton Mall?
Yes, we were in-house. Yep.
Right. So you went from in-house to contract.
That's correct. Yep.
Right.
Quite a difference.
Yeah. Yes. So I'm just going to go back and forth with both of you. Nephrit, like what kind of training did you, or like when you first started in the industry, Did you see the potential of this being a career, or is this or how long did you work in the industry before you saw the career potential?
So I actually came here in 2013 in Canada from India. So at that point, I was not sure what to do. And I took the security course, but a basic security training. And then I got into the industry, and I got motivated, and I took courses, and I was like, this is for me. I should go into that. And why not this? And it took time, but eventually, by learning and getting experience, I just want to get into the security industry. Yeah, got motivated by my superiors.
Right. So Brad, how about for yourself? How long do you think you worked in the industry before you recognized there was career potential?
Well, I was really focused on going into policing, but then I realized that, maybe policing isn't the career. And I would say it was about 6 years. And I was given the opportunity to be the operations manager at the West Edmonton Mall. And I was, I'm like, okay, I was like, maybe this is for me. But then it really opened up my eyes when I first went to my first ASIS convention in Dallas. And that's when, and I went to an ICS West conference in Vegas and Las Vegas. And that's when it really opened up my eyes, like, whoa, like this is a career, like, because there's so much diversity within the industry itself. So I thought, this is maybe my calling, right? So it just didn't have to be about a security agent wearing a uniform. There's so many avenues with security that you can go into. So that's when it really opened up my eyes, about 2008.
Right. So did you, Nephrit, what were your experiences like as a security officer? Did you enjoy yourself? It sounds like you probably did, but did you enjoy yourself?
Yeah, it was actually, I enjoyed myself because I was working at the Deerfoot Mall in Calgary. And at that point, I was enjoying dealing with the incidents, like lots of incidents happening in the mall, and then I was enjoying my job. And then, it was a lot of things to learn, but I faced many hardships, but I was enjoying it.
Right. Good.
Yeah.
And what advice, I guess, so I'm going to ask you both this question, and I'll start with Brad. So what do you know now about your career and about security that you wish you would have knew, when you started out?
That's a good question. I even thought about this for a while, right? I would say that what I know now versus what I didn't know back then is that back then I didn't know that security was a career, right? I just thought it was a bunch of guys in uniforms, right? That's all I thought. Now now that I've been in the industry for a while, I encourage people to go. We have the internet now, right? Where you could research so many different avenues of security. So, I mean, take the time and explore it. Whereas I was very pigeonholed into one area, which was just guard service. So if I were to pass on to anybody, just go and take a look to see what else is out there, and then join the organizations that are out there. Like I'm part of the local ASIS chapter here in Edmonton, right? I mean, it's a perfect networking opportunity, right? Back then, I didn't really know much about networking. My previous employer wasn't really supportive of it. He liked to stay to himself. But now that I look back on it now, it's like I wish I would have gone out more. And I mean, I've done well for myself in the networking, but I mean, don't be shy to join ASIS and the local chapter. That's what I would recommend.
For moving up. And before I get to you, Nephrit, I do obviously want to say something about IFPO. I mean, back in my day, when I first started working in security back in the early 90s, I was exposed to IFPO. In fact, IFPO was created here in Calgary in 1988 by a gentleman that I used to work for, Ron Minion. And I got my certified protection officer designation in 1991, and it really opened up my eyes to the potential for the security industry. Big believer in IFPO, big believer in the CPO program, big believer in the CSSM. And I think the networking opportunities that comes with IFPO are tremendous as well. So, so Nephrit, so how about for you? What do you wish that, what do you wish you would have known then that you know now?
So when I joined the security industry, at that point, I was not even aware that it's a career that I can go into like various places by getting this career. And now I know by taking like trainings, courses, workshops, and as Brad mentioned, that networking is really important. So I joined ASIS, ACES, and then also getting trainings and enrolled into the courses, which helped me in gaining knowledge and skills now. And it's actually a learning process, which I think we should never stop. And I'm still learning and enrolling into the courses. So one of the courses I have taken, which I highly recommend, is risk management. And it actually really helped me in getting my proactive approach on the issues going on in the society. So this course is really beneficial for us as it assesses the vulnerabilities of the buildings and offer the solutions to mitigate the things. And I actually took it with Glen, which is really like informative. For instance, if we are reviewing security controls, like then with the security risk assessment, you can see how efficient your controls are and how you can upgrade them. Moreover, you can take the preventive measures in order to increase the effectiveness of the security controls. So this kind of trainings helped me a lot in my career growth as of now, which I was not aware that I can take in back then. So yeah.
Thanks, Nephrit. Hey, I appreciate the comment. I'm glad you enjoyed the class. Thank you for that. So again, so going back to Brad. Brad, do you have a written career plan, or is it more in your head?
It's a bit of both, right? I mean, it's I've jotted it down, but it's mostly in my head, right? I mean, the number one thing that I'm working on right now is obtaining my CPP. So I am studying for that right now. And then after that, I'm looking at other designations through ASIS as well, whether it be the PSP or the PCI. So, and then, I mean, I've told some colleagues of mine that it's, I'm all about moving up. I mean, with my previous employer, I was always moving up the chain. And that's what I plan on doing with Garda World, or even in a different organization, right? So it's, but that's what my plan is right now.
Right. Okay. Hey, and before I go over to Nephrit, if there are questions from anybody in the audience, we would love to hear from you. If you have anything you'd like to ask of myself or Brad or Nephrit, I welcome you to submit your questions. So, and Nephrit, how about yourself? Do you have a written career plan, or how have you planned your career over these last several years?
So I actually have both. I mean, it's written and in my head as well. So I'm also preparing for CPP, but right now my focus is on whatever I am doing to be better on that. And yeah, in future, I want to excel in the security field. So whatever the designation comes up, I am ready to take that. And it is only possible if I take good courses and, get myself equipped with the knowledge and skills. So yeah, that's what I have in my mind right now.
Okay, so I just want to make a comment about the tools that are out there, and ASIS has developed some great tools. Now, I will say that ASIS is primarily focused on developing managers and above, and this is where, again, IFPO, I think, plays such a valuable role. There's plenty of courses out there. There are plenty of opportunities, and I've actually designed a career pathing map or table that when we finish this webinar, we're going to put it on we're gonna put it on the IFPO website. But there, I'm gonna throw on that table, and that's just for everybody. I've actually uploaded it to LinkedIn. It's an evolving document. I think I'm on version 10 right now. But for anybody who is interested, actually, if you just search me out on LinkedIn, and you'll see I've got a post in there about career pathing, because again, I go back to my time as a frontline practitioner, and I got to say, I mean, I really enjoyed my time as a loss prevention officer. I really enjoyed my time as a frontline security officer. I worked in a commercial high-rise property. I worked in a shopping mall. I worked at a couple of different facilities. I really enjoyed working as a security officer. I just found the big thing though was that the money just wasn't there, and much like Nephrit and Brad, I recognized there were career opportunities, and so I wanted to move up. And I did. But again, I mean, back when I was doing it, like you had to figure this all stuff out on your own, and there are lots and lots of documents out there now. And probably the most important thing I can say is that for every sector of the economy, there is a corresponding security. They all have security programs. And so, whether you want to work in banking, or you want to work in construction, or you want to work in engineering, or you want to work in commercial high-rise properties, or retail, or government, or whatever, they all have corresponding security programs. So there are lots and lots of opportunities out there. So, Brad, just back to you. What do you think the biggest challenge you've experienced in your career was?
The biggest challenge I ever experienced was that I know when I was trying to get into this industry, even when I left Wesum and Tamal, I was competing against, it's a highly competitive market, right? And I think the biggest challenge is that you're competing against the baby boomer generation of police officers, right? And it's really tough to compete against that. I mean, I'm still fairly young. And when you're applying for a job and you're up against, a retired police officer, I mean, employers will tend to, lean towards the policing applicant versus a security applicant, even though policing and security do have similar similarities, but there is some differences, right? I mean, with the security and this is even to what is said in the CPP manuals, is that there's a business aspect to security. It's just not public safety. There is a business aspect to how security programs are run, right? So, and that's where I think as a security professional, that's where we have the advantage, right? Whereas policing is they have a different mindset, right? I mean, it's not bad. It's just they just have a different mindset when it comes to security. Right. So that's the biggest challenge that I've encountered.
Okay. All right, thanks. Nephrit, how about you? What's your biggest challenge, you think, or has been?
For me, I think it's it's a language barrier when I started. So that's a challenge for me. So as an immigrant, I moved here in 2013, and I was not very much I was not good in the language. So so that was my biggest challenge at that point. And yeah, I learned a lot at that point. Like I took the courses to improve my communication skills, and to get into the industry. So yeah, that was my biggest challenge.
Okay. So we have a question here from Patrick Mubelwa. I hope I said that right. I apologize if I didn't. Patrick is from Tanzania, and his question is, so what challenges do entry-level security officers face in your country? Because in my country, there are many challenges here. So before I turn that over to Brad and Nephrit, I mean, one of the things that I want to say is that, yeah, absolutely, there is a stigma that in order for you to succeed and work your way up the ranks, that you have to have law enforcement experience, and that we all know that is simply not true. What I found that trumps that every time is education. And I learned a long time ago, when I first started encountering barriers, just to start taking courses and just take course after course after course. And I mean, I'm the first to admit that I'm a bit of a fanatic. But I've taken them all, but I got to the point where I started self-financing, and by that I mean that I couldn't afford to take courses, so I did take out a credit card, and I just used that to pay for my courses at the time. And so that goes back to one of the big challenges, and back to Patrick's question. I think a lot of us face is that security officers are not paid a lot of money, and I think that's the same the world over. And so it's often tough to pay for courses. But I will say this, that if your employer in any way offers any kind of training, I would say take it. Take every course that your employer will provide to you. That's free training. So Nephrit, like, what barriers do you think generally security officers face from your experience?
So from my experience, there is a lack of training sometimes, and employers sometimes doesn't want to get guards into the courses. So I think that's the biggest thing. Education and learning process. So these go hand in hand. So employers should think about giving more opportunities to the guards by educating themselves.
Right. Okay. So how do I say this? I mean, I agree with you. Often the guards don't have access to training courses. But the other thing I'm going to say before I turn this over to Brad is that, quite frankly, if you're working for a company, as far as I'm concerned, if you're working for a company that doesn't offer any kind of training in any way, shape, or form, then I would say that people need to rethink who they're working for. That's just. I mean, we're free to come and go and to go work for whoever we want. And I would say in most cases, and I think you want to pick and choose the right employer. So Brad, just, throwing it over to you. I mean, what do you think, what advice could you give to frontline security personnel around the challenges of training?
Well, I mean, you said it best, Glenn, right? I mean, it's, if there's training available by your employer, take up on it. Just because, I mean, and if there isn't from that employer, then that's a big red flag in my opinion, right? Here you have an employer that's not willing to invest in their staff, right? So, but I mean, if you do have the opportunity to take any training, take it, right? Because it's going to benefit you down the road. I mean, I was very fortunate in my career to be a part of some really good seminars, whether it be on counterterrorism with my old employer when we went to the States, and we had some ATF agents and FBI agents present to us. Like, I mean, it was free, right? I mean, the company paid for it. So, I mean, it's if you get any opportunity to take up training, just take advantage of it.
Okay, so the other thing I actually want to say, because Brad brings up a really excellent point, is so typically there's two kinds of training and learning, and that's a formal program, and then there's informal programs. Obviously, if you're listening to us right now, you have internet access. And if you have internet access, you have access to many, 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 many free training programs. There's lots of great content out there from all kinds of organizations. We're seeing since the beginning of the pandemic that universities are offering all sorts of, and I mean high-end universities are offering free courses, free certificates. And I'm not just talking about like low-level content here, and I'm also just not talking about security. I would personally recommend that people take courses on leadership, on business, on emotional intelligence, on how to become more effective, on soft skills development, on negotiation. I mean, all these things that can help you. A friend of mine is also doing a regular webinar, Martin Gill, thought leadership webinars. They're free. He runs twice a week, and those are 45-minute webinars. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I think I've listened to 90 of them in the last 10, 11 months. And that's all free education. And he brings in expert panelists from all over the world to talk about a variety of topics. So yeah, there, I mean, like, you don't have to be sitting in a classroom somewhere. You just, there's lectures on YouTube, there's books, there's all kinds of, like, they're all free. There's just so much content out there. I mean, that was just not available, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So I have another question here. So, okay, the one thing I am going to say is that it's half an hour. We said that this was only going to last half an hour, but I'm happy to keep going if Brad and Nephrit, if you're willing to go for a little while yet.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, so I have a question here from William Killens. Okay, so retiring from Florida. Thanks for joining us, Will. So retiring from the military with over 20 years of service, over 15 years in special operations, and a high-level security clearance, what steps do you suggest I take after retiring in terms of maximizing my previous training, experience, and security clearing for transition to the security sector? So anybody want to...
I'll let you take that one, Glenn.
Well, Nephrit, anything?
Oh, you can take it.
Okay, all right. Well, like, Will, I mean, I'm going to say the same thing. I know I'm probably already sounding like a broken record here. I'm repeating myself, but well, for starters, I appreciate your service. Thank you for that. That's fantastic. I just would recommend certainly taking security certifications for sure. And to cast around and to look at what those various certifications are. And this is where we can do a bit of a transition between education and training. I mean, and training is more defined as, learning immediate skills. And it's learning how to do a risk assessment, learning how to program a card, an access control card, learning how to operate a fire alarm panel. Whereas education is that deeper, broader content. It's much more cognitive. It gives you foundational education about like the whys of, why something is done. And so what I would recommend, obviously without looking at knowing, further what your educational levels are, is to consider some of those broader, deeper educational programs. And also like business. Definitely want to be considering business. The risk management is absolutely foundational. And if you feel you have a really good understanding of that, then that's fantastic. But and this is kind of where I'm going to highlight what I find is the difference between some, and I'm just going to call them government retirees, whether they're military, law enforcement, corrections, sheriffs, or intelligence services or whatever. It's not a given that if you've worked in those areas that you automatically know all the technical elements of security. And so what I would do is get a deeper understanding of what's expected from a security perspective. There is great content out there, whether it's the CPP content, whether ASIS has done some fantastic work around task complexity and competency models, and I would have a look at that just to do a comparison to see if you actually have the skill sets that ASIS and IFPO suggests that you need in order to be successful. So that's what that's just off the top of my head. So Jane, I've got a question here from Jamie Clark. So how would you speak with management of a new company starting up about training of officers when you have the training experience that other officers do not? So can I throw that at you, Brad? I'll ask, can you see the question or do you want me to ask again?
No, I can see it. I'm just thinking here. I mean, when you're approaching a company about the training, in our business, we have to sell them on the return on investment, right? And it's when we explain to companies that training the staff is going to pay huge dividends. That means that could be less lawsuits. There could be less disciplinary issues, customer satisfaction, right? Because customer service is huge in our industry. So, I mean, it's if you pitch it to the company saying that, we're going to not eliminate, but at least reduce any complaints or concerns that may come down the road. I mean, when I mentioned liability, we could also there could also be the risk of criminal implications, right? So, I mean, with that being said, that if the guys aren't, if the security guards aren't trained properly, I mean, you could run the risk of them using excessive force, and they could be charged. And at the end of the day, a security company, is that they don't want their bad name in the media, right? So if you provide the training to your staff, then they could reduce a lot of those issues that you may have down the road, such as liability. So,
Nephrit, any comments on this?
Yeah, I totally agree with Brad. It's like we need to tell our employer regarding the positive things we can achieve while getting the courses. So yeah, it's really beneficial to have courses.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and Brad brings up, and Nephrit bring up good points, right? I mean, training does provide a lot of things. I mean, Brad's comment about reduced liability is absolutely true. The one thing I am going to say about generally about training is that globally, I've come to see that there are three kinds of training, and just foundationally for anybody who's interested. So when I got my professional doctorate at the University of Portsmouth. I was there between 2013 and 2017. I did my doctoral thesis on security guard training around the world. Now, my primary topic was whether the Alberta Basic Security Training Program prepares guards for work in the industry. But part of that work was that I did look at 35 training programs from around the world, both public sector and private sector. Obviously, one of the ones that I looked at was the CPO program, but I also looked at several others. I looked at American, Canadian programs, India, Singapore, Australia, et cetera, et cetera. But I've identified that there are typically three kinds of training for security personnel: non-existent training, poor training, and good training. And I will say that of those three categories, the vast majority of training programs are non-existent. And I know that's being a little bit tongue-in-cheek here, but many countries do not have any kind of training programs, and so there are what I would call the good or poor training programs. Now, poor is a relative term. Like here in Canada, average required mandatory training for 6 provinces of between 40 and 50 hours of training for a security officer to be licensed. In the United States, it ranges anywhere, in 25 states, it ranges anywhere from 4 hours to 48 hours. There are still 25 states that do not have any kind of training programs. We have the exact same thing here in Canada. Like in the European Union, training ranges from 28 hours to 320 hours. So it's all over the place. And the other thing I want to say about training is that there is good training and that there's bad training, right? There's lots and lots of bad trainers out there. There's bad training content. And, you have to ask the larger philosophical question: would you rather have 40 hours of high quality training or 200 hours of crappy training? So there's that. And I mean, obviously we're not going to solve all the issues here, but there's another question here from, I hope I got this right, Jairo Batista Munave. I hope I got that right. I hope I did not butcher it. Jairo is from Colombia. And his the comment here is that, for example, here in Colombia, the salary for people in security, and I mean with guards and bodyguards level, isn't good, and employers don't spend money in training their people. So I can appreciate that. And the one thing I am going to say, and that I would encourage everybody, is to acknowledge that yes, it would be fantastic if your employer provided you with training, but it's your career. And I believe that every one of us needs to take personal responsibility for our own careers. And if somebody else is denying you training, well, then go out and get it yourself. And again, I understand, not everybody's in a position where you can finance your own training, right? I mean, I get it. Globally, there are inequalities all over. And, and I'm speaking from from my position, in Canada, where I've been lucky enough to work for organizations that do provide training. But my first employer, they didn't provide any training at all. And so again, I had to go out and self-finance. And so I cannot stress enough how important it is to remind people that it's your career. You need to take personal responsibility for it, and that you know, if you are really interested in and really passionate about wanting to work in the security industry, look for ways to do that. You know, look for opportunities. I mean, if it means going and working for government somewhere, so be it. You know, look at the I guess look at the big picture, but look at trying to get training. And again, as I said, there's lots of free training out there, right? There's lots of lectures, there's tutorials, there's webinars. Like, the internet is just exploding with podcasts and webinars. There's books that are free. There's universities that are offering all kinds of free courses. And what I found is that this is like a trail of breadcrumbs. Like, you find one, and within that one breadcrumb, you'll find a nugget or something really important, even if you just learn one thing, and that'll lead you to something else, which leads you to something else, which leads you to something else. It's just so on and so forth. And I just cannot stress enough how important it is for people to take that personal responsibility with their own careers. So I'm just looking at the time. It's 40 minutes after. So I just do want to wrap this up. I just want to ask each of you for just a closing statement about your thoughts on training overall and your career. Any closing comments, Brad?
Well, I mean, we've said it a lot today already, but I mean, it's compared to like when I first started in 2002 to now, like, I mean, technology has changed so much and information is at our hands, at our fingertips, right? And I mean, go ahead and search the internet for all the training that is available, especially the free stuff, right? Because I mean, it's going to pay huge dividends in your career. And like Glenn just said, you're in control of your own career. So I mean, just don't sit back and wait for it to come to you, because it is, like I said earlier, it's a highly competitive industry, right, for jobs. And if you're not going to be willing to put the time in to develop yourself, then others will develop themselves, and they'll be the one that'll be successful in getting the career and the positions. So I mean, there's lots of information out there. So take advantage of it.
Okay, Nephrit, final closing thoughts.
So I just want to tell everyone to believe in yourself and in your potential and in your intelligence, that you can do it. If I can do it, you guys can do it as well. So just trust your thoughts and like ideas in your mind. All you do, all you have to do is believe in yourself and getting equipped with the trainings and programs. So then nothing can stop you. You can achieve your goal, whatever you want.
Okay, great. Hey, that's fantastic. I wholeheartedly echo that. So thank you. And I want to really thank Brad and Nephrit for joining us today. And I do want to thank all of the attendees for your attendance here in the webinar this morning. So thank you for that. And for anybody who does have questions, or if anybody wants a copy of that career planning pathway table that I've developed, again, I'd recommend you could either search me out on LinkedIn, but I do plan on giving it to IFPO, and we're going to upload it to the ifpo.org website. It will be located on there, and it's for people to have a look at. And again, it's an evolving document, and it's based on a fair amount of research. I just didn't create it one day. I mean, I put a lot of work into it over the last several months. And it's evolving. So on that note, I just want to thank everybody very, very much. And I'm just going to bring the webinar to an end. So thank you all, and take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.